Arizona basketball has four guys who are locked in as starters. Who is going to be that fifth one? There's two different options, and we're going to talk about all of that. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. All right, let's get started here. We are going to talk about who's going to start and what exactly is going to be that next role. We got a little bit more to talk about right here. But first, let's talk about Arizona's starting lineup right here for Hoops. First thing, though, that I think everybody knows is that Kylan Boswell will start at the point. Don't listen to any nonsense about how he won't start, whatever that case may be. They are wrong. He will start. I can guarantee you that Kylan Boswell will start. Sure as I'm drinking this Powerade Zero right here. And what are you going to get in Kylan Boswell? I think you're going to get an all-conference performer. I think you're going to get a player that'll probably average about 15 points, 4 or 5 assists, 3 or 4 rebounds, something like that. That's what I'm looking for, though, out of Kylan Boswell. And not only that, I think that he can be an all-conference player. That's what you're looking for if you're the U of A. You're looking for somebody that can be an all-conference player at the most important position on the court. And in college basketball, I do believe the point guard is the most important position. You could say that in the NBA now that, the big athletic wing has become that player. Fair enough. Not going to argue with that, but I will say that I think in college, if I could have any dominant player, any great player, I am going to go with the point guard first. Now, who's going to be next to him then? I think you're probably looking at Jaden Bradley or Pelle Larsson. We're going to get to those guys in a second, but who else is going to start? Caleb Love will 100% start. I know that there's people out there that do the question, should Caleb Love start? I'm just going to tell you the way it is. You don't come to the University of Arizona after starting 3 years at North Carolina and not come here starting. That's just the way it is. You're going to start, and quite frankly, you should start. And on top of that, he's also going to. Let's be honest here. He's earned that. You don't come from North Carolina. And put up the numbers he did, average the amount of points that he did, drop 30 in Final Four games, and go somewhere else and not start. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I think that he fits a very, very succinct need for Tommy Lloyd and the Arizona basketball team. And not only do I mean that, I think that, and by that I mean that, yes, Arizona needs guys that can make plays off the bounce. And again, I'm not really breaking any news there, but Arizona needs those dudes. Can you get to where you need to get to on the court? Arizona didn't have guys like that last year. They didn't have players like that last year. And I think that's where, if you're Arizona, you're certainly hoping that that can change some things. Now, I do think that with Arizona, the one thing you have to know, though, is that the Wildcats are it's going to be a different look for Caleb Love. I think that Hubert Davis is a bad coach. I know that he took him to a championship game, but I watch Hubert Davis, and all I see is a high pick and roll or something where you're coming down and you're ISOing for 7-8 seconds. It's very much of an NBA type feel to it. I don't think that that's conducive for somebody like Caleb Love to actually for Caleb Love to thrive in. As a matter of fact, I think it's kind of the opposite. I think with Caleb Love at Arizona, he's going to get the ball, and I think he's going to have 2 to 3 dribbles to be able to make that move, get to where he needs to on the court, and pull up, whatever the case may be. But that's what I'm looking for out of Caleb Love. But he will start. And he's the only player on the team, I believe, that has the potential outside of Kylan Boswell to be the best player on the team. Again, he's a talented guy, and I think that a lot of people are kind of missing the boat on him a little bit. The big thing that I think you want from him is you want him to be able to score. You want him to be efficient, though, and I think that's what we're talking about right here. Can you be efficient while you're doing this? And if you can be efficient while you're doing this, then your Arizona is going to be in a lot of I think Arizona is going to be in a lot of good shape right there. As a matter of fact, I think that Arizona is going to be, I think that Caleb Love, quite frankly, is the difference between being a national title contender and being a really, really good team. Again, keep in mind, this is a squad that is, this is a squad, though, that is, you're a lot tougher now, but you needed one last thing, and you needed that dynamic scorer, and getting Caleb Love is that dude. I know that North Carolina fans don't think super highly of him. I don't care what they have to say. As a matter of fact, I think that, I think when it comes to Caleb Love, they didn't use him right. And you know what? Some of it's probably on him. I get that. Some of it's probably on him. But I don't care. I think Tommy Lloyd's a much better coach, and I think that Tommy Lloyd's going to essentially tell him, listen, we're going to give you some creativity. We're going to allow you to do what you want to do, but you got to get to where you want off those 2 to 3 to 4 max dribbles. You're not going to get 8, 9 dribbles where the defense is just going to key on you. That's not how we play around here, and I think that's a good thing for Caleb Love and for Arizona, but Caleb Love will start. So you have Kylan Boswell who will start. Then you have Caleb Love who will start as well. Then after that, another player that I can guarantee you will start is Keshad Johnson. Keshad Johnson, again, players who start on national championship teams and who drop 13 and 4 in that national title game, they don't go to other places where they are not going to start. That is just that's just not what they do. He will start, and not only will he start, he will. I think he's going to give something that Arizona has not had in a while. And what I mean by that is he's going to have they're going to bring a toughness to Arizona that Arizona has not had. Arizona, with Azuolas Tubelis was very, very good. Don't get me wrong. He did a lot of really good things. But at the end of the day, though, there is also, I think, some questions just about Azuolas Tubelis' toughness. And that generally showed itself in big spots right there. And what I mean by that is that he, in a big spot, there was a lot of times where it didn't really look like he wanted the ball. And against Princeton, I think that was never more apparent. Now, again, I don't think that Keshad Johnson is going to be the player that's going to be demanding the ball, saying, hey, give me the ball and get out of the way. But I also think, though, too, that he is I think there's a level of confidence there with Keshad Johnson that he is going to go in there and nobody's going to bully him around, because that's not how he plays. We're going to talk more about Keshad here in a second because I find him very intriguing. But first, got to talk about FanDuel. All right, FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. FanDuel. Okay. Now, again, we talked about it. This is the crummy time of the year. At least for sports. Not a fan of what I'm watching, but it always makes it a little bit more interesting when you have a little skin in the game. I like games where you can get in there and you can bet a little bit, especially if it's, let's be honest here, especially if it's a game that I don't have a ton of interest in, a sport that I don't have a ton of interest in. It becomes a lot more intriguing than at that point if you've got a little bit skin in the game right there. So again, check it out. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. All right. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back with you. And we're going to talk more about Keshad Johnson. Then we're going to get to Umar Ballo. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right. Now, we're going to talk about Keshad Johnson a little bit more. Arizona's not had anybody like him in the Tommy Gunn era, where, again, he's about 6'7", super long, very strong, athletic, and keep in mind, this is a player that Kentucky really wanted. And it wasn't like it was just a cursory, yeah, we'd like to get him and stick him at the end of the bench. He would have played major minutes at Kentucky. He just would have. And not only would he have played major minutes, he would have also most likely He also most likely would have probably played 20 minutes per game at Kentucky. So Kentucky really wanted him. That's a big feather in the Tommy Gunn's cap, though, as well. You got to remember that, though, that he beat out Kentucky, John Calipari, for somebody that Kentucky very much wanted, and Kentucky had a real plan on how to use. So you got to keep that in mind right there. That is definitely something that if you're Tommy Lloyd, that, whatever you think about Tommy Lloyd, you got to give him some credit on that one, because, again, I think it's pretty impressive stuff right there. Now, when it comes to Keshad Johnson, what should we expect out of Keshad Johnson? I am going to expect something like I think he's going to average 10 points and 8 rebounds per game, somewhere in there. Maybe a tad more, maybe a tad less, but I do expect his numbers to go up a little bit just because of the way that he runs the court. Not only does he run the court in a very effective manner, he can finish around the hoop. He's going to be able to guard the other team's best player, the best, inside player. So again, there's a lot to like about what he can do right there. Now, Umar Ballo, leader of men. Umar Ballo will start. I'm a huge Umar Ballo fan. I think anybody that knows me knows that. I'm just curious what that next move for him is. Can he become 17-8? I don't know. He was 14-8 this past year. There were times where it felt like maybe defenses kind of figured him out a little bit, but he also was how do I put this? He improved a ton. He was much, much better. And not only was he much better, he became a lot better than I thought he was going to be. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Can he take that next step? I don't know. But I do know one thing. He will start. And he's probably going to play 25, 28, 30 minutes per game, something like that. And again, if you're Arizona, I think you're just hoping that you can make that next step. If you can make that next step, you're good. You can't? Well, is what it is. But he will start. So those are your 4 positions right there that you know for a fact are going to start. Kylan Boswell is going to start. Caleb Love is going to start. Keshad Johnson is going to start. Umar Ballo, leader of men, is going to start. Then after that, it's interesting because you got 2 options, 2 different dudes, Jaden Bradley and Pelle Larsson. All right. Pelle Larsson first. What does Pelle Larsson bring to the table? Well, we know what Pelle Larsson brings to the table. Besides bringing some Swedish pinballs, he is a dogged defender. He's very, very good. He's a lot better than I thought he was. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But he also is limited in some certain capacities. Put it to you like that. He can't dribble. We know that. It just is what it is. He can't dribble. He's a pretty good shooter, but he's also a standstill set shooter. So, which means he can't ever be a Kyle Korver where he's running off screens, where he's getting up threes, whatever the case may be. Not gonna be able to do that. But there is a lot that he can do, though. And not only is there a lot that he can do, there's also a lot of, how do I put this? He can defend. He can finish around the hoop. He's pretty strong, and he's not a weenie. Arizona needs tougher players out there. Pelle Larsson's a pretty tough guy. Some of his limitations, though, just kind of, they limit him. Then so again, he's going to play starter minutes. I don't know if he starts or not. I would personally probably bring him off the bench. I've never really seen anybody that was that stark, the difference in how they were as a starter as opposed to coming off the bench. I would probably bring him off the bench. We'll find that one out, though. Now, Jaden Bradley. Now, I like having kind of the 2-point guard system. I'm a big fan of Jaden Bradley. I think Jaden Bradley is going to be really, really good for Arizona. He is, again, ex-5-star point guard out of New York, went to Alabama and realized the error of his ways there at Alabama. But now at Arizona, he's also going to play starter minutes. Again, I don't know if he starts per se or what the case may be, but he's going to play starter minutes. I would prefer him, and again, just me, I would prefer him to come off the bench. For him to start, because I think, well, quite frankly, I think when you've got a Caleb Love, when you've already got a Kylan Boswell, I think having another ball handler out there is really nice. And again, a lot of this too is that we've seen Pelle. And again, we have a big enough sample size. I don't care what the stats say when people try to say, oh, he was as good as a starter as he was as a bench player. No, he's not. If you have eyeballs, I got 4 eyeballs. I was able to watch and tell and ascertain that he was better coming off the bench. And Tommy Lloyd obviously agreed because that's why he is coming off the bench, or that's why he came off the bench. And Pelle as a starter looked like me. Pelle off the bench looked like Larry Bird. I don't want to really mess with any of that dynamic right there. So I would start Jaden Bradley. My starting lineup would be Kylan Boswell, Jaden Bradley, Pelle Larsson, sorry, Kylan Boswell, Jaden Bradley, Caleb Love, Keshad Johnson, Umar Ballo, leader of men, and the 6th man coming in right there would be Pelle Larsson. Pelle could check in at any time in the game. Pelle could check in at the under 16. Pelle could check in at a variety of different times. And then after that, who else could be that other player? Who could be that 7th, 8th guy? Is there that player on the roster? Let's talk about that on the other side. Stick with us. You're listening to Locked On Wildcats. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Now, let's talk about that 7th, 8th guy. We talked about what I would go. We do know one thing. You're going to have a 6-man rotation right there, in that you're going to have 6 guys that will all play a ton of minutes, that will all play starters minutes, and that's just kind of where we're at right there. But who could be that 7th or 8th guy? Because I don't like when teams go with I think unnecessarily put pressure on themselves and come with bench or only 6 men, because I think it doesn't give you much of a margin for error. Not only does it not give you much of a margin for error, it also kind of prevents you, I think, from having the ability to do I put this? Be able to, play through some stuff, deal with foul trouble, things of that nature. So that's kind of where we're at. Now Paulius Morauskas. I like him. I'm generally a little skeptical of the international players as instant impact type guys, because there are times where it just doesn't happen. And I think that it's kind of a majority of the time. Now, again, you can watch, and a lot of times you'll find players or you'll find people that'll say, well, errors, they looks good against so-and-so. It's just different. I don't care what anybody else says. It's just different when you watch those guys overseas. It just is what it is. That's why, like Henry Vasar could come in with a top 35 rating and just really didn't look like he belonged there. Now, Paulius Morauskas, Arizona's got him. 24/7 has him rated as the 104th best player in the country. I'm intrigued by him. I think that he can kind of get where he wants. He can shoot a little bit. He's pretty athletic. He's got some skill. He's got a nice little frame to him. I think that he can play a little bit. I don't know at what level, but I think that he can play a little bit. I'm curious to see if he can be that 7th guy. If Paulie M can be that 7th guy, then I think you feel pretty good about it. Then who could be that 8th guy? I think you'd like it to be Henry Vasar. We all love Henry, obviously. We want Henry to be good. Henry took a big step back from the midseason on, but he is back for year 2, and I think we're going to find out very quickly how good Henry's going to be. Is Henry going to be the player that was projected as one of the 35 best players in the country? I don't know. But we'd sure as heck like to be able to see it. And not only that, will he be able to be one of the top 35, top 40 kids, something like that? We'll find out. But he can run the court like the wind, obviously. He can block shots. He can shoot threes. There's a lot to like about what Big Henry can do out there. I'm a fan of Henry. I'd like to see it. And then after that, I'd like to see Dylan get a little bit of run as well. Everybody knows, big Dylan Anderson fan. Obviously, I'd like to see Dylan get a little run. But that's kind of where you're at right now. You know that you got 6 guys who are locked in. Pardon the pun, locked on. But again, Kylan Boswell, Jaden Bradley, whoever starts between Caleb Love, Pelle Larsson, Umar Ballo, leader of men, and Keshad Johnson. Then after that, it becomes a little bit more interesting. So we will find that one out. But Tommy Lloyd does have a lot to work with right there, and I'm excited about that because, again, I think that he took inventory of what he needed this past off season, and he made some tough decisions. It wasn't easy because, again, I think he really liked Kirk Kriisa, but it was better for Arizona to move on from Kirk Kriisa. It just was. Wish him nothing but the best, but Arizona has retooled in a big way, and I think that you can expect Arizona to bear the harvest or whatever the case may be. But as always, really, really appreciate you all. We are going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Carter Bryant. We're going to talk about what Carter Bryant, a little bit more in depth, what break down his game in the specifics, and what you can expect from him at Arizona once he gets here. Because keep in mind, under Tommy Lloyd, the Wildcats are recruiting at a, they're going to schedule at a very high level. Jamari Phillips will be talking about as well, maybe a couple other players, but that's kind of where we're at this point. All right. But as always, really appreciate you making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats.